story that must be told. Here's a little story that must be told. Here's a little story. Here's a little story.
I go by Specs Wizard or Specs One, usually just Specs Wizard. I'm an artist. I do graffiti and comics and rap and make beats and, you know, murals, stuff like that. Just hip hop stuff, I guess. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I'm born in the Central District. First started drawing when I was about 4 years old because I did a finger painting or something and I was really into that. I think that's kind of where the graffiti started probably. Like if I heard something or saw something that I was into, I'd get kind of obsessed with it, and it just got me addicted to drawing and painting in general. Didn't want to stop after that. I've always liked comic books, you know, because it's just about exploring the imagination kind of deal. And just something to collect and stuff too. I loved going to the 7-Eleven and spinning the rack and all that kind of stuff. And later on, it was the comic shops and stuff. Like I've always read a lot of Norse mythology and all that kind of stuff as a kid, or even like Sinbad and all that kind of stuff. I always liked adventure stuff like that, just like with imaginary characters, because there's nowhere you can't go with that, you know. Pretty much anything I can get my hands on, but a lot of Hulk and X-Men and Warlock or Ghost Rider, Fantastic Four, I was really into. My biggest inspiration for art a lot of times were people around me, you know. There's this guy, he was fresh out of prison or something, and he was doing all these ballpoint pen drawings and stuff, you know, and I was always staring at that kind of stuff, you know, and wanting to be like the doodlers that I saw. So yeah, people around me, and even like my neighbors and stuff, like a kid would just draw superheroes good, and I just want to be like that or something. So I was competitive with my friends or anybody around me. I would just like aspire to, you know, try to be good. In the 80s when I started doing graffiti and stuff, I just had to write on everything for sure. I used to go to school in Georgetown, and I started seeing tags just in the industrial area around there, and I'd take little walks. When I was like 11 or 12, I guess, was when I first started seeing it. And yeah, I became obsessed with graffiti right away, just from the... It was a quiet city back then, too. Like, you could walk around all day, and nobody would even talk to you in those times, you know. So I used to just wander and discover, you know. It was amazing to me, you know, just the fact that there's somebody out there, you know, putting up their name like that. I got it kind of, you know, I got it as like a message, like, okay, I'm a human being and I'm out here or whatever, you know. So it made me want to do it too. So eventually got my tag right, you know, start putting it up. That Georgetown area, you know, different like main straightaways, you know, it's like different avenues and stuff like that. I would just walk around that whole area. And then after that it was Beacon Hill, like going to school. When I started going to school at Sharpless, you know, when I'm on the bus, I just look at the walls the whole way. So I'd be staring at walls from West Seattle through downtown and all the way, you know, back through like Columbia, you know, all the way to Rainier, basically. There's tags everywhere back then. After a while, it was like, that's all the bus ride was for me. I'd just be reading tags as I go, and walking too. You just see a lot of tags and stuff. And like I do that even today. It's like I read the whole wall when I'm walking down the street. I know who's in the neighborhood. I can tell who's hanging out, or I can tell when people are passing through from other cities, even because you see like one or two tags that look different than everybody's tags, like total different flow, you know. And you're like, oh, okay, that's some Cali shit, or, you know. For me, it was more just like a branding kind of a thing. I understood it right away that it was like I mean, because you grow up seeing a lot of signage and a lot of like billboards and a lot of advertisements and a lot of like, you see that a lot as a kid. So it's like in your head already. And so to me, that's what it was. It was just like people being like, oh, forget that company or that corporation. What about me? You know what I mean? It's like we're doing the same thing as they were, really, but in a different way. Taking the wall space back. But to me, as a kid in the 70s, I would be annoyed by signage sometimes. I'd be like, why I gotta look at all this? I thought it was corny. I just got tired of it sometimes. But I was way more into graffiti where it was just like a free-for-all and everybody was putting up. It's just the same as a cave drawing or anything else. It's the same drive to show that you're here. It's the same thing that we were doing back in the day. What I was saying about the signage and the constant, billboards and advertisements. You just want to kind of yell back at that and advertise yourself, to counteract all the other advertisements. Like I couldn't wait to just write on everything, really. It wasn't even a vandalism thing. Like you hear a lot of kids talk about destroying this, destroying that. Like, it wasn't really about destroying stuff to me. It was more like sending out like the beacon, the I'm here thing, Especially with tags, you wanted it to look right, so you would just do it all day. Like I would tag like my name over 100 times a day, easily, just to try to develop it. At least that's how I did it. I want to develop it first and then take it out, kind of deal. Like the first years of graffiti, it's all figuring it out and who you want to be, kind of. What's your style? What's your, what are you bringing to the table, basically. It took me about 3 years to figure it out, of drawing every single day, all day, kind of deal. It's like, didn't matter what class I was in, if it was history or language arts or anything, I'd still be drawing pieces instead, basically, in all those classes, All my classes were art classes, basically. I would go to a wall and just sit there and kind of sketch on it for a while, And people weren't looking for graffiti yet, so it wasn't like, they weren't on the lookout for it. I had walls in High Point on the school where it would just be the whole wall. And I had walls like that at Sharpless, too, that I would go to every day and just kind of keep drawing on the same. I was making certain areas my sketchbook kind of deal. So at the end of the year, it's like a bunch of drawings by me on one wall. I don't know if there's any photos of that, but that'd be crazy to see something like that. They tried their best, to fight it off or fight against it. My whole remedy for that was always just like, let us paint more murals, if you give us more wall space to paint on, there'd be less tags, Because if you take those spaces away, kids just get mad, and then it becomes that whole destroying thing where they just like, I'll just write on everything then, Like for me, it wasn't about getting in trouble. It was more about that secret world we had, of just like, we understood what it was about. It was our own kind of thing going on, where you communicate between writers, and then it's like a separate world. It's like we all know each other. Like I said, when I read the walls, I can tell kind of what's going on. We're just communicating, And art is communication in general, So I always thought of it like that. It's a call and response, Like almost every art form is. I was in a couple of crews. United Bomb Association was the first crew I was in. This guy Chaos that I met downtown. Because we used to go to 3rd Avenue every day after school and meet up in front of McDonald's. That was kind of the spot where, I don't know what it's for now down there, but it used to be the graffiti meetup spot in the 80s. So every day, just go down there and meet people like Mr. Clean and Trans and other cats from Pen Pals, or like Dad One and all those guys, It was cool. It was like a meetup, It was like we were networking and stuff like that. I was working at a comic book store up in the U District, a place called Xanadu Comics. When it would get slow in the store, I would just start sketching and stuff and making up these little zines and comics just to pass the time. And at the time, I was reading Captain America. For some reason, it was cracking me up. Like, it was just, the writing was over the top and kind of exaggerated, and it the time, it would just always make me laugh. So I started doing Achiever as kind of like a spoof on Captain America, you know. But I like to do satire on just everything around me, so I make my version of America in general, you know. And just having fun, really. It's more of like a love letter to Marvel Comics or something. Just all the stuff I grew up on, trying to get it out of my system, basically. That was the year 2000 when I created Achiever. So, you know, I would pick it up, put it down over the years, and around 2010 I started doing some more like full-on Achiever comics, like trying to finish them and stuff, like do full-on stories. And so then it started getting more of a mythology to it. In 2020 I was like, oh, Achiever is 20 years old, so I decided to do it again. And came out with another series and stuff. So I've been doing it ever since. I've been filling up a lot of black books. I've got about 45 of them at this point. Starting in like 84 to now, so yeah, I got a lot of books. Lately I've been obsessed with drawing like these freestyle kind of just, I can show you one. I always have a book on me for sure. So yeah, I have a book that I did last year that I filled up, freestyle dome with a little caption or something, you know. Time for a change. A lot of times they'll just be thinking what I'm thinking, kind of, and that's just what I just want to say what's on my mind constantly. So I leave it up to that. It's more like a Zen approach, you know. So I don't have like a specific message or anything. You know, like I'm not really into politics or anything like that. I'm more into the art itself and the process of growing and evolving through the art, you know. I started rapping and right when I heard the Sugar Hill Gang record, I started probably writing that same day. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do this, you know. It was more like I was being seasoned to make hip-hop because I grew up on like a lot of records and stuff, like a lot of soul music and funk music and rock also. Just my whole life, you know, I've always been around records and stuff. Well, I have one brother that raps and then another brother that he was on the piano, pretty tough. And even my older brother, he was on the piano a little bit too. We all just kind of branched off into our different corners. But I think, you know, there's a lot of music in my family. All my uncles, they all did music and stuff and still do. My early influences were definitely my uncles, you know. But I grew up with a piano in the house, so I definitely would mess around on that and look for melodies on it and stuff like that. So, but I'm not classically trained. Yeah. My understanding of music comes from listening to music. I like music from all over the world. I really like music probably from like 68 to 74 is my favorite era of music, probably. So a lot of the records I sample are kind of from that era, but so it felt really natural to jump right into that. When it started, I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I was just taking instructions. I felt like I was instructed to rap almost, you know. And I started making beats because I needed stuff to rap to, so I started messing around with drum machines and like 84, 85, like Roland's and stuff like that. And then Casios and 87 and 88. And that got me into sampling and everything. Just do it every day as a practice, you know, just like write something, rap, put it over a beat, record it, just for myself, you know, and I did that for years before I even started presenting it to other people. Same thing with tagging, you know, it's like you just try to get it right first before you take it outside. I never was just satisfied with stuff that I did. I was always like, all right, that could be better. So that's what keeps me doing the next thing. I'm just trying to be better than the thing I did before. Started writing when I was like 11 or so, and when I started recording like in 88, you know, I just started collabing with people, and that's what helped me to get into the recording thing more. And I always wanted to work with people too, and I started a bunch of crews like when I was younger, like in the 80s. I had a crew of like 8 rappers, you know. And I would always try to get my friends to do what I was doing, but it was hard to keep them into it because the attention span thing. It was hard to get people to like sit and get better. Eventually I just ended up by myself, you know. A lot of people aren't into it for the long haul like that. Old school, it was like people like DJ Doom and DJ Crush, and then DJ Wacko and FE3. E Sharp, I ran into this guy, E Sharp, more in the 90s, and we kind of took off on a whole different tangent because he was into what I was into with the sampling and everything. So that was a good time. We had this group, Elevators, which was in 93. And it had kind of an impact, you know. At first it was me and Scrady Ray, later known as Textiles, and E Sharp. And then after a while it became just me and E Sharp because we were crystallizing kind of a sound that we'd get together and talk about what we wanted to do as far as music. And we just ended up gravitating, into a group just because of that. And we started I don't know, I think we made some cool stuff. I was doing it every day, like just all day, making beats, and just until I came up with something I liked, And yeah, just kept it up, haven't stopped. Like there's always something good out there. I try to keep my ear to the street for the most part. I'll listen to anything. I like sound in general, so it's like I like to listen to all types of weirdness, especially for sampling. I just got so obsessed with that to where it's taken on a whole life of its own as far as like what I'll sample. I sample a lot of movies and stuff. It's not always records. A lot of times it's just I'll just throw a movie on and start chopping it up. I like the extra sounds you get because I like my beats to kind of sound messy in that way, but more atmospheric, to where it sounds like you're outside or on a street corner. I made an underwater beat or two. Yeah, I have. I told you, I've done that before. I have one beat that sounds like you're inside of an elevator. It's like has this. I can't find it. It's probably the dopest beat I've ever done. My editing style. It's like if you listen to a record I did called Original Space Neighbors. It's like I made up some fictional characters and just put out a record, like a soundtrack for their lives. They're basically aliens that come to Earth and start making hip hop because that's what everybody else is doing. They're just like kind of trying to blend in, so they make a rap record. But the way I put that together is a lot of like intros and like, it sounds like a movie almost. I don't always do that, but that's definitely a part of my style, part of my sound, I would say. It's fun to find your own stuff too. Like doing field recordings has always been a thing of mine too. Like I like to carry tape decks around and record. I used to ride the bus and just tape it. So I've put a lot of that in my beats too. Me and Silas Black have been trying to do something together since back in the day, but I always wanted to do something with him, with my beats, with him, over the top. So, decades later, Rob Castro approached us 2017 or something and, got us in the studio and we made an organic record, basically just sitting there writing in the studio to the beats and stuff and called it Black Wizard, and Rob Castro put it out on a record and stuff. So that was dope, Go pick that up too if you can. I kind of went ham in 2020 out of necessity, It's like, what else was I going to do? I did, that's when I got back into drawing Achiever, writing and drawing Achiever, and then also started doing a lot of music. And that ended up, what I did in 2020 ended up on a record also that I did with AJ Suede. So I can show you that too, for this record. Yeah, so this is basically the 2020 set. I like it. It's like a truly underground record. Got to make things more interesting for yourself when things get kind of sterile, like they're getting. Like I said, like a kind of as a response to all this AI stuff, maybe people will get more into that stuff again. Just making it from the ground up. And it's hard work, but it's more meaningful in the end. You do something for 30 years, it's kind of what you do, So it's not about, if succeeds or people are into it, or I'm still gonna do it anyway, basically.